Hi, I'm Novel Mike, and this is my opinion. All right, we went through the positives. If you have not watched my first part of this two-part Nintendo presentation video series, my positive reactions to the Switch were in a previous video, which I will link down below or at the very end of the video if you'd like to check them out. But here we're going with the negatives, or the things I'm concerned about. And I do have an overall point to this, that's why this is its own video, but we'll get to that in a minute. To begin with, I did not mention Fire Emblem Warriors as one of the positives last time, which I think that's actually a really good game for that type of game, for a Dynasty Warriors kind of game. But my negative, the reason it's here instead of there is because they only showed a stupid teaser trailer for it and said they're doing a direct for it by itself come a couple days from now on the 18th. So I will be checking that out and am hoping to see positive things, but it was kind of just a troll, quick, oh, hey, yeah, we're doing this, but no, you can't see anything during a presentation that I felt like really could have shown some more games. So for this presentation, the first negative thing to really talk about is the price point. $300 is not that much, but when you look at some of the other things that cost a lot more money, that's when I get concerned about the price point for the system. So the system is $300. That doesn't sound too bad, but it is right at that PS4, Xbox One price point they're both currently at. So that's not exactly a ringing endorsement when your system is clearly less powerful, even though it has a few gimmicks and not a great launch lineup, and it's going to be on store shelves, have its own section, and you're just going to be looking at that, and it's just like, oh, hey, there's 5 games for this Nintendo Switch system at launch. And then you look at PS4 and Xbox One and like the hundreds of games they have already, and that is not a good thing when they're the same price. So I think $250 would have been a better price point. And part of this is also the controllers. For those who have not seen, the extra Joy-Cons are $40 a piece, $80 for both, and the Pro Controller is $70. This is absurdly high compared to other systems, and it seems partially because of this new Rumble HD technology that's included, and that these things are just more costly to make. I'm just not sure that they shouldn't have just made this as an additional thing you could have bought for the system, instead of packing it in and making both these controllers and the system itself much more expensive. And the other thing is that the system itself only has 32 gigabytes of built-in memory for the system, which you can expand with micro SD cards eventually up to 2 terabytes, but they don't actually have cards out for that size yet. It's only up to 250 or 1 gigabyte or 1 terabyte, something like that. So it's going to be a while before we get any decent cards, and those are also really expensive, so it feels kind of cheap to put such a small card into it, especially if you do want to go digital on this, and Zelda takes up about half that by itself. Nintendo is seemingly making the system more costly, but also putting in cheaper things that people do care about, like storage, which is not a ringing endorsement. And while yes, it is technically a portable system, when you look at it also as a console, that is not a good thing, especially with, how the Nintendo Switch works with its online functionality and what we don't know so far. So that's probably one of the biggest problems, is that the online functionality is completely unknown at this point, but they do say that they're going to charge for it come this fall. The problem with that is that Nintendo historically has had the worst online service, and that's the only reason they've been able to, have any real sway about it, is that people could always say, oh, well, it's free, you're not paying for it, so of course it's not that great. Now they're going to be paying for it, it needs to be much better, and Nintendo has not historically shown that they have either the infrastructure or the capability or the people running to make a proper online system. So I worry about that, and one of the few things they talked about on their website after the fact was that they're going to be giving out, for people who get this online system or pay for the online, will be able to get one Super Nintendo or NES game for free a month. Similar to games with gold and stuff like that, just a lot less significant because it's a virtual console game. The problem with that is that they also said that game will only be available for that month. And once that month is over, then that game goes away unless you buy it. That's pretty shitty. I don't understand. You're basically just getting a rental for it, and you could technically argue the same thing about the PlayStation Plus already. with how in Xbox Live Gold with how those things work, because when you eventually stop paying for it, those go away. But just to take it away while you're still paying for the thing, that's not a good thing, unless they were giving you a lot more than one game, and they're not. It's one game and it's one of two different systems. I mean, that's just not good at all. But it's Nintendo's gonna Nintendo, and a huge thing that was absent as well from this presentation was the Virtual Console itself. They made no mention of it. They said they'd talk about it later after the fact, but people were expecting GameCube to finally get its Virtual Console because people really want to see something like Melee or Super Mario Sunshine and several of these huge GameCube games, Eternal Darkness. And they have basically said nothing about it. We have no idea what systems are going to be compatible for the Virtual Console. And another problem with that too is they're still not talking about a unified online account system, meaning if you had previously purchased something like Earthbound on the 3DS or the Wii U, then there's no mention if it will be carried over. And since they didn't go out of their way to mention it, we can probably assume that's still not happening. And god damn it, Nintendo, would you get a grip on this shit already? It's just insane to me that they do not seem to have a real understanding on how modern technology works when it comes to actually people retaining their purchases. And with all the innovation that they have, with all these unique games they offer, I think most people are going to look at whatever they do for their Virtual Console and just look at it and just think, well, this is okay, but why am I paying another $10 to play this game now on another system? Why exactly does this thing, why are there so few games on this Virtual Console like there was the Wii and the Wii U? Like, Nintendo has one of the hugest backlog libraries of games that they could put on these systems, and they have just trickled them out in the worst possible way. And Jim Sterling highlighted that in a video a week or so ago, and I wholeheartedly agree with him, and that the Virtual Console could be amazing, but Nintendo has made it shit, and they deserve to get a lot of flack for it, and they need to improve that, because people want to be able to play these old games on their systems, and when you make them, or play these old games on their new systems, and when you make them just either you have to keep buying them in a lot of the games, or just not making them available, it annoys the living crap out of people. For people who want to be able to just have it all in one on one system, especially since the system will be portable. But Nintendo's going to Nintendo. The launch lineup itself is pretty abysmal as well. It's not the worst launch lineup in history. There's 5 games coming out with launch of this. Historically, I think the worst one is the Nintendo 64, which only had Mario 64 and Pilotwings 64 at launch. So that's pretty terrible as well. But the Nintendo 64 still did remarkably well despite its launch, and there actually has been a lot of positive buzz about the Nintendo Switch so far. So even though it does only have a few titles at launch, at the very least it does have a huge title like Zelda, which will carry it for the first couple months, I think. Besides that, I think the biggest thing that Nintendo is having a problem with is what this presentation's shown is that they have not truly learned from the mistakes they made with the Wii U. They are definitely trying to make releases more available. They do clearly understand what people want with certain titles, like what we've seen with the new Mario game being a big open world 3D adventure like Sunshine and 64 was. But they don't seem to business-wise understand that they need to operate in a more consumer-friendly manner in order to really retain their customers. And if they don't do that, well, then you're going to have a big problem with, trying to get people to buy the system when, you're telling people that, hey, yeah, we don't have a lot of launch titles. Our digital service is shit, but you're going to have to pay for it, which it may not be. But again, I'm going by how the Wii U and the Wii online systems were. And our Virtual Console system, which could be amazing, we just put so low effort in, it's not even worth talking about. It's not a good thing to really have. I do think that all these things could be good. Like if they get their online system to the point where it needs to be a comparable experience to PS4 and Xbox One, that will be okay. That's fine to make people pay for, I guess, since everyone else is, if they are going to put the effort into it. If they don't want to just have to sell Virtual Console games, I really think they should consider doing something like how PlayStation Now is, but not making it streaming, making it so you download them and have it be a service that you pay for, which I've seen other people say as well, where you pay a monthly fee to play, all these old retro games and have a huge catalog of games available and you can make it like a tiered service with the online. Like you'd have a base online, like $20 a month, where you just get to play online, and then you can make it like 40 or 50, maybe if you include like all the old retro systems like Super Nintendo, NES, Genesis, Saturn. Hell, I would love to see Dreamcast even. Which that's probably less likely, but we'll see. GameCube, etc. Like they have so many old games they could put and make available on this if they just take the time to do it. And I think a monthly fee for it would make people a lot more interested in it than just having to rebuy the same games over and over and over again. But we'll see. They definitely need to cater more to third parties. Seeing that EA come out on stage and say, "Hey, we're bringing FIFA to the system," and then the next day say, "Oh yeah, it's the PS3 and 360 versions," that's not a big vote of confidence from them or from consumers. And that's just not going to work out well at all. Excuse me, I had to get a drink of water. But yeah, I don't think it's all doom and gloom from Nintendo. I'm not trying to say that, but I do worry that they're repeating a lot of the same mistakes, and that in the end will hurt them. And it doesn't seem like it's that hard to figure out what they need to do to make things appeal more to customers. If they don't want to do something like the virtual console thing, making it like a paid subscription kind of thing, then just having it be so any purchase you have retroactively work on this new system would be a huge step as well. I'm tired of buying Mario Brothers for like the fourth or fifth time and having to pay money for it. I know they did discounts on the Wii U, but at this point, I've paid so much money on this thing, it should just be free if I purchased it already. That's how it works on most other systems. It seems ridiculous that you're trying to make people pay for it still, especially when these games are so old and you make people pay quite a bit of money to buy them. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and I definitely think that's something they need to fix. One of the more positive things that could come out of this with the virtual console situation, though, is there is a little tidbit when talking about the free games a month, that these games apparently will be able to be played online for multiplayer games, which could be huge if that is real and not a bullshit statement that they're just saying to make people not so upset about the online service. It's such a tucked away thing on their site, though. You wouldn't actually notice it unless you're specifically looking over all the little details on it. But if they can actually bring out retro games, stuff like Mario Party, Super Smash Bros. Melee, if they go with GameCube, Virtual Console, Mario Kart 64, all these huge multiplayer games on these old systems and make them playable online, then you might be able to justify making people buy them again. But without that, you need to do something. And if that is something that they are working on, then I do think that could be awesome, and I may be rebuying some games again for the 1000th time. But that is a cool feature that I don't think that other companies have tried doing with their retro games, especially Sony with their PlayStation games. That would be pretty amazing. So if Nintendo, if you are working on that, more power to you. But for love of God, why aren't you talking about it? Anyway, I'm Novel Mike. That's my opinion. I don't want to be too negative. I do want to say I reserved a Switch. I'm buying it. I'm excited for Zelda. I'm excited for the system. But I do worry that Nintendo has not gotten all the lessons learned that they needed to from the abysmal sales of the Nintendo Wii U, and I worry that could start off the Switch in a bad way. Considering that they hyped up third parties pretty well, they surely did not show third-party support very strongly for the system, especially at launch. So that will be a contentious point to begin with, but we'll see how it goes. There definitely does seem to be a lot of positive buzz about the system and about Zelda being a launch title. So we'll see if that's enough to really propel the system forward and do really well in its first couple quarters. But anyway, I've gone on for long enough. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.